Good luck.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lat Mackey, and this is Sequence Break, a podcast that features conversations with speedrunners, developers, content creators, and everything in between. This is episode 83. Welcome back, GlitchCat7. GlitchCat, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Thanks you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm getting the high score coming back. I got a high score of 2 now.
There it is. You've made it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. Is there anybody else? Okay. I know Eon has been on more than once, and she may be the only one.
So it's tough competition.
Moving up the leaderboard just like that. So I specifically asked GlitchCat7 to join here today to talk all about an awesome documentary that came out just, I guess we're 2 months away now, or just a few months ago, Running with Speed, the speedrunning documentary. And if you've watched the trailer, if you know anything about it, you may have noticed this face sitting right in front of you here. He was telling me he's the thumbnail. He's the darn thumbnail. How cool is that? So
I might be a little harder to recognize because my hair was a lot shorter.
Well, that's the thing, and I'm ready to get to talking about that. This thing took years for us to actually see, and I'd like to start off with, let's talk a little bit about what it is and all that kind of stuff. But before, I just wanted to start with one thing, and I don't know if you've had this experience, but there have been a fair amount of projects, it seems like, in the speedrunning world that have tried to get off the ground. People might shoot some stuff, people might interview some stuff, and just never see the light of day. And for whatever reason, it's expensive sometimes, the time, the effort, maybe they didn't pan out the way that the filmmakers had hoped to. This one actually saw the light of day, and I'm curious, had you ever had any experiences, anything like that, noticing that kind of content that way?
I was trying to think of something in particular, like an example, oh yeah, that was talked about, but it never came out. I think it's the kind of thing that people had always been talking about. They had, oh, it would be cool if we had this. It'd be cool if we had this. But I think it's a complicated subject,
right? And
I mean, the runtime for the film as it stands is 2 hours in 3 45-minute parts.
Yeah, and
I think it's a complicated subject, and I think that made it tricky because, from a filmmaking perspective, how do you approach it? Do you talk about the development of the runs? Do you talk about the accomplishments and the players, the charity marathons? This one did a good job kind of hitting all of that a little bit. So I think they did a good job dealing with the complexity of the issue at hand,
I totally agree with that. And I think that's one of the things that is pretty awesome about the whole thing is that if somebody knew nothing about speedrunning, which, by the way, it's pretty awesome how kind of ubiquitous speedrunning has become. It's a lot more, at least when I say speedrunning, people aren't looking at me like I'm an alien nowadays. But I will say that this would be the kind of movie, even though it is, the runtime's a lot long, break it up into chunks. We've got streaming nowadays, it's one of those things that seems like it's a good entryway into what all of us in this world are kind of doing. So I guess let's start with that.
Yeah.
If you had to describe Running with Speed to somebody, how would you pitch the documentary?
Well, I think it's a really good overview of what speedrunning is, what speedrunners are doing, the individual stories involved. I was gonna say it's one to show mom and dad or to my IRL friends who don't really know what this is or have anything about it. It's that it can be someone's entry point from going from I know nothing about this to, oh, okay, I might want to try this. It might be the thing that might tip someone in the direction of wanting to go for a speed run or maybe a world record.
I totally agree. And I think it also it's great that you mentioned mom and dad, because that's really the approach it seems like the filmmakers took, having no inside knowledge. Yeah. That it seems like they were like, man, how could we take this? Because it's kind of weird to describe our little world here if you've never tried a speedrun, or if you've never watched a speedrun, or if you've never participated in any of our events, or if you've never put on. A lot of people still don't know Twitch. I mean, there's a lot of folks nowadays. It's thankfully it's a lot more out there, but you may not have ever seen any of this stuff ever before, and it can be kind of strange to say the least.
Yeah, yeah. It made me think the way you said that is you could talk about GDQ, you could say speedrunners play these games really fast and people watch and stuff. And I've thought of myself describing that to friends oh, what did you do? Well, I went on stage and there was a crowd and stuff. Right. But it's such a visceral experience. And I know yes. you've experienced that too. It's so visceral to hear the roar of the crowd, the lights, the big stage lights that are on you, it's a school picture day. You know what I mean? And the film does a really good job of bringing that visceral experience to people to really show them no, it's more than just you get up on stage and do a thing. There's this huge apparatus involved with it. I like the way the film brings that to people in a real way.
I agree with that. And at the same time, I love how it shows kind of the other side of it too, where most of the time folks who are doing it full time, like yourself, and it's Mitch's section on the screen right now, where a lot of times, in fact, most of the year, you're sitting at home in front of your computer. Like a lot of us nowadays, you know, your job is just performing to an audience, but you're talking at your monitor most of the time and stuff like that. That's one of the things I really loved about the documentary, is seeing that side of it, like what it really looks like.
Yeah, it's cool. Something is always said, you know, between streamers. Remember, I was going to my first GDQs. It's cool to put a face to the name, and you meet these people. Oh yeah, I watch your stream. I'm so and so, and you. Oh okay, and they're like, we all know this, right? But everyone in chat, you're people, you're real, actual people, and there's like one of you, and two of you, and three of you, and then you get them all in a room together, and you really get to feel the power of what 100, 1,000, you know, 100,000 people watching something really feels like. Like I don't know, like you ever just like go, if I'm at like a local show or something, I'm always counting the number of people. Like, okay, this is what 80 people in a room looks like. It's more than you think, you know.
Wow.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, I teach to a classroom of like 30 students every day, and it's like that's. I mean, you'd be very happy to be, you know, streaming to that, or like a whole multi-purpose room or a gymnasium. I mean, it's kind of wild when you start thinking of it like that. The numbers, add up very quickly.
You know, big streamers are playing to the equivalent of a stadium every day.
Every day.
Yeah, or a sold out club at some kind of, you know, bar or something.
I got to say, as much as we've talked about how this is like this, you know, this might be a really good entry way for your parents or for people who maybe don't know much about speedrunning. The thing I appreciate as a person who knows most of the people who are in this documentary, seeing you all in a different light and seeing what, you know, what a lot of the trials and what you are like outside of, you know, stop stream, or what you're like outside of on the stage. It's the part that I really enjoyed the most. And I just, the fact that you were so intimate on there, I guess, is that something? So I guess this leads we're kind of steering away from it, but why not? Is that something that the filmmakers asked you about, or is this something that just kind of happened organically? How did that happen on the screen?
Well, I mean, they got in touch. I think Mitch actually told them, oh yeah, there's someone else in the area, in my area that does this kind of thing. So thanks for that. And, they got a hold of me, and they said, you know, hey, we're making this documentary about speedrunning. And they asked if they could come out, and they're like, hey, you know, we know you're kind of in the area. Could we come out and film with you? And I said, yeah. You know, I've always been one to, even at GDQ, you know, I'm the one like inviting people back to our room for the party, and then they're knocking on the door late at night, like, hey, there's too many people in here. So I'm always cool with that. You know, people can visit, you know, they're doing a project or whatever. So they came out, and, yeah, we just kind of hit it off and talked. I like that. And I'm actually really grateful for the opportunity to present that in particular, to be just at home hanging out. This is just kind of my regular life. This is what my living room looks like. I like that. And I'm grateful that they actually wanted to go that way with it a little bit, instead of just, here are the big names at the big event. Look at them go.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm really glad that they approached it that way, because at least in my experience with my own personal speedrunning, a lot of times, in fact, most of the time, you're by yourself. You're doing your thing. You're practicing. Some people like to practice on stream. Some people like to practice off stream. Some people, you know, everyone has their own approach to how they do this thing. And it's interesting how, you know, your lifestyle at some point is going to influence that. Like, when do you have time to actually practice and to play these games and stuff like that? And so seeing it from that side of the thing, I just found that endlessly fascinating. How long were they there? Like, what was kind of the process of actually the actual production process?
It was kind of chill, and it's actually weirdly enough, it's not the first time I've actually been in like a video game related documentary before. I was in a film called Nintendo Quest years ago, but I wasn't really in it. Like, I was just kind of in it as like a Nintendo fan. And whereas I appreciate this one kind of taking an interest in like what I'm actually doing and playing. But they came out, you know, scheduled a day. Hey, can we come out on this day? They came on out, and, you know, we hung out, we got a pizza, and they just wanted to film some stuff. They filmed like upstairs, kind of in this room, which looks kind of different now because I put in carpet and I rearranged it.
Yeah.
But they just, you know, they wanted to get some shots of me playing like I'm streaming or talking about stuff. We did an interview. downstairs in the living room. I like that one because they it looks like the pinball machine in the back of me in those interviews in my living room. It looks like it works, but it doesn't. It's just on there with the lights.
Looks great.
But you know, they two dudes, they just brought their equipment out and just kind of real like professional. You know what I mean? They weren't. I've met, I don't mean any kind of shade, but I've met a lot of people who do projects and things. Oh yeah, man, we want to make this and this and this and this and do this. And they didn't really seem like overhyped. You know what I mean? They were just like, we want to make this film. This is what we're going to do. We're here for that. And they did it. And I don't know, there's like, it's not that much of a story, I guess. They're just very like professional about it. They always kind of knew what they wanted to do here.
Had they talked about what their experiences were with speedrunning? Because one of the things that I noticed is that they seem to have every aspect of the documentary, which is probably why it's 2.5 hours, seem to have a lot of care and thought into it. And what I mean by that is that they have these different sections that make a lot of sense. What is speedrunning? Why are people, you know, what's the motivation to go fast and all this kind of stuff? But at the same time, they know there's a human story behind it. And so there's like this care taken with all of that. And I'm curious if they, you know, if they seem like they were fans beforehand, or what your experience was like with the people, you know, the two people making the film.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I honestly don't know. Nick and Pat who produced it. I really don't know. I don't know if I asked. Like, now I'm just thinking like, you know what? I never actually asked them. But yeah, I like you said, I really like that I think they've done some other stuff with human stories kind of thing. And I like the way they blended that in. I think they could see that side of it clearly, like when they initially started filming and when they were doing that. I think they saw that very early, that this is a story not only about people who are doing this thing at a high level, but just the regular folks at home and what their lives are like. They noticed that. That's smart of them. They noticed that ahead of time, and I think they leaned into that angle. So props to them for that. But as far as their actual experience in speedrunning, I don't know. I really don't know. One of the smartest choices, honestly, and maybe you hadn't brought it up yet, but Summoning Salt as the narrator. I think a lot of his passion comes through in that. But what their actual experience is, I'm not sure.
That's a great point, and that's one of the key things in kind of like thinking about this, you know, like if thinking about the film, is that Summoning Salt's narration, by the way, I think so many people are aware of his voice and his storytelling that it automatically kind of invokes some emotions in you. And the fact that they were able to work with him to kind of tie all these pieces together, I think works so perfectly. And for those of you who haven't seen the film yet, Summoning Salt narrates the whole thing, and he's also in it. For those of you, I'm sure at this point everyone's got to know, but Summoning Salt's a passionate speedrunner. I mean, he's at the top of his game at Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and is passionate about his own speed runs. I thought that was did you know before the film was going to be made that he was going to be doing that, the narration part?
I did actually,
okay,
or at least for a little while, and we've chatted, we've stayed in contact. They said, yeah, we got, you know, so-and-so, you know, it's kind of a secret on the down low. And so I was just kind of like, okay, don't say anything. Like, but as soon as they said that, I thought, oh, this is perfect. Like I've heard Summoning Salt described as the David Attenborough of speedrunning. And I think that is really true. Like a naturalist who also just has a passion for bringing the information and the story to people. So yeah, I really honestly think they just absolutely nailed it with that choice in particular.
I totally agree. And I've been fortunate enough to have him on the podcast a couple of times. And I think that's one of the things that makes him such a good storyteller for our community on top of things, is that he actually is like, just like it seems like these documentary guys might have been, that they were like, you know, he's really into the speedrunning stuff. Like he obviously enjoys it, and has his, you know, is just as passionate about the actual speedrunning as he is the content he's creating, you know, on YouTube and everything like that. So I thought that part was very cool, and getting a chance to, you know, see him actually play the game. One of the things, I don't know if you feel this way at all, but I love seeing speedrunners actually using the controller and doing the thing that they do. I think that's one of the things I love about GDQ too, right? Like you can actually see what these amazing inputs, because you know they're hitting frame perfect stuff, and like to actually see it happen in real time just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's always a thing. Oftentimes when I'm hanging out with people playing in real life, I'm looking at their hand and what they're doing with their controller.
It's pretty rad. And I know we've done a couple of controller cams at GDQs and things like that, and people still stream with their controller cams, you know, try to avoid, you know, try to keep it avoiding the crotch cam / controller cam. But it's I always think it's pretty awesome.
There really is something for like you said, just like seeing just you're seeing someone just sitting in a room, like they're the full body of someone just kind of holding and playing a controller. It's different because when you're on stream, you're always just that like kind of floating head. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that was one of the, I think it's the nice thing too, like the documentary again, where like you're seeing the behind the scenes. So it started off with Mitch's story, and now we're actually in your story on the video that's being shown on the screen right now. And like actually seeing you, you the distance to your TV. One of the, I don't know if you've ever had this, but as a person who's been on the GDQ stage, is the distance to the TV, was it at all weird for you actually having to play on that screen? Or, I'm curious if you sit the same distance.
A little bit, yeah. It's a little bit bigger than I'm used to. I
Yes.
play on a 13-inch Orion CRT, so it's actually I can just like reach out and touch it from right here, and it's
Right.
like right, all the edges of it are like in my peripheral vision. But then again, I also did used to play on a bigger CRT back in the day, so I kind of have that experience. The thing to do really for me was just like be in the practice room for a while. I know I'm going to do a GDQ run, so I hang out in the practice room and I play on TVs that are already like that. And then when I get on stage, it's not as weird.
One of the things that they covered, and it's being shown right now, is they're showing your ROM hacks that you have developed. And I thought it was pretty cool that some of that actually got into the documentary.
Yeah.
That's got to be, how do you, I mean, I've thought about like, that's not an easy thing to explain to somebody what you've created with those things.
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. It's kind of like, oh, you know those YouTube videos that's like 12 levels of explaining something to someone. It's like every time, if someone's asking or I'm trying to explain, I'm really figuring out like, what's your level of understanding about this whole video game stuff?
Yes.
If it's none, then I might tell you like, okay, we rearrange Mario levels to make them hard. And if it's more than that, then I could get into the specifics, right? But like, it's tricky to like overwhelm people. And if I try to like answer the question without info dumping on them, you know what I mean? I made this, you can rearrange it with a computer and make them hard. Sometimes like that's all people need to know.
I think it's probably a good thing that a lot that like Kaizo, quote unquote, has been, colloquially now described as hard Mario. It's not like that's not technically the, maybe the translation of it, but the fact that you can kind of break it down to a little bit simpler meaning, I think that has helped a bit in getting some of that out there. When you were, I'm curious about your own, I don't know if we talked about this the last time. It's been so long now. It's been a few years. Did you start speedrunning first, or did you start trying to develop your own levels first? Like, what was kind of your entryway into the speedrunning stuff?
Well, honestly, my entryway into this was before I was a streamer, actually. And this is silly. But the other video game documentary back in like 2000 would have been 2008, 2009, maybe 7, 8, 9 ish. I saw The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters.
Oh, yes.
Yup. And at the time, I was just some guy that liked video games. I didn't know nothing about nothing. And that was the first time that I had ever found out, oh, there are other people who do this kind of thing too. Wow, someone else cares about how to be good at Pac-Man. I thought I was the only one. And so my intro to this actually was Twin Galaxies. I played on Twin Galaxies for a number of years. From about 2008 to about 2012-ish. I got my first world records through them in 2010 on NES Millipede and NES Cubert. My Kool-Aid Man record is still standing, but I did high score before I did speedrunning. And then I saw Carl Sagan 42 at AGDQ, I think it was 2012 or 2019, but he was doing the Yoshi's Island 100% run. And when I saw that, because I had been watching like classic games and stuff, and I saw just that run in particular, Carl's run made me want to get on that level. And it was like, wow, he's got commentators. He knows all the stuff about the game. He plays like a god. I want to do that. I want to be on that level. And so I started speedrunning when I got onto Twitch. I kind of got more involved with speedrunner culture. And when I also kind of realized that I appreciate the folks that like the high score stuff, but it's just not quite as flashy of a run sometimes. High score Mario 3 is a slow grind, and speedrun Mario 3 is, flashy MFP stuff.
I really like high score stuff, and I know, like you're saying, it's not the most flashy thing. I think it's pretty cool. If you talk to anybody on the GDQ Games Committee, they want to get those runs on that stage, and not a lot of people submit them. Interestingly enough, to GDQs, I think maybe because they think it's speed runs and things like that, but like they want to get those because some of them are, especially the bullet hell and the shmup stuff, and some of that. I mean, there's some really wild gameplay in the high score world. And you brought it up, and I do kind of ask about it. There's a fair amount of people who still speedrun today who started out on Twin Galaxies. That actual process of submission and getting it verified by, I think they called him a referee at the time and stuff like that. What could you walk us through that a little bit? Because I feel like it's so foreign to me. I wasn't even around then.
Man. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. Picture it. The year is 2008, and you go on Twin Galaxies. This is where I met Andrew G. Was where I first met Andrew G.
There you go.
Twin Galaxies all the way back when. That was where we kind of hit it off and became friends. But back in the day, what you would do, it would be, and this is how I did it for a number of years. We all did it this way. Streaming isn't really an option. Capture cards don't really exist. Remember the Dazzle DVC, the little USB capture card? That was it. And so back in the day, what you would do is you would hook your Nintendo up to a VCR, and you would play, it'd have it like through from the VCR to the TV, and then you would just play your game and record it onto a VHS. And then you would take that VHS and you would print out a little sheet that was like your score submission sheet, and you would write down your score and what time you got it and everything. And then you would mail your VHS tape to a referee in the mail, like the physical US mail. And then the referee would presumably watch the tape, verify that you did it, you didn't cheat, you didn't splice the video or anything. And then your score would get posted on the board. And that might take, who knows, a month, a week, depends. Referees have to watch a lot of stuff. But that was how we did it. That's how we all did it. We sent VHS tapes in. In fact, I still even have some VHS tapes that I never even sent in. So there's a lost world record GC7 tape that I have kind of hanging out in storage.
I know it's good. By the way, Twin Galaxies is still around today, folks, if you didn't know. And I know we kind of joke about it nowadays, for better or for worse. But I really do. There were a lot of things I feel like contributed to speedrunning kind of getting into what it is today. And you got to admit, like, Twin Galaxies was out there before anyone else was doing it. Before, I think it was even before before oh gosh, what's the one Mike worked at? SRL, thank you. Yeah. SRL, and also so they were, the fact that I really do feel like it did contribute in a certain way to getting to where we are today.
Yeah, there's that's a topic for another thing, right? The whole Twin Galaxies thing. But my point was, regardless of whatever controversies, there are very legitimate players that play there, even to this day, who always have and continue to. For example, I posted a good score on Frostbite for Atari. Someone on Twin Galaxies recently beat it. I believe it. No problem, right? Just because there was some instances doesn't mean that everybody in the organization is playing weirdly. And I've had the chance to meet a lot of really talented players through that. So, while I ultimately didn't stick around there in particular, I do consider it like an important formative time for me as a player.
One of the things I remember is that, I'm thinking back to the documentary now, and it's been going on. It feels like they were shooting it for a very long time. I remember going to I feel like 3 different events where I saw the filmmakers there, and that it finally came out. And I guess what my next question is going to be to you is this has been quite a long time period that it took to produce the documentary, and I'm really noticing, I think we might have talked about this before. It's like you've seen this whole thing kind of evolve and change and get to where it is today. Did you have any side of foresight when you, back in 2010, 12 or Twin Galaxy days, through when this documentary was being made, that you'd see where we are today with speedrunning?
That's a really good question, actually, because obviously, the tempting answer is to either say yes completely or no, I never had any idea. In truth, I still feel weird. It's still impressive to me that this is all even possible. When I was a kid, I thought, oh, it might be really cool. I would like imagine playing at the Super Bowl of video games, and there's an announcer and they're saying, oh, he did a great move there, and I'm playing my game and people are watching and cheering. I would like imagine a GDQ thing. But even as a kid, I was like, okay, that's not realistic. The adults don't really care. No one really cares about video games. And so like, in a way, it's like I always kind of hoped. I like hope for the best, plan for the worst. I'm like, it's cool that this is existing, but wow, I'm surprised that people are into it. You know what I mean? I'm still kind of surprised by that sometimes.
I know that COVID, I'm sure, affected the production of this thing. The fact that they were able to still get what they got, even considering COVID, did they keep you up to speed or anything like that, or like when this might actually come out, or when they might actually finish what they're doing? I can understand now why it took so long, and we'll get to that in just a second. But did they keep you in the at all?
Not
about
really.
That? Okay,
not really. Well, a little bit. We got some updates here and there. Hey, things are coming along good. You know, it's coming along good. We're working on this or that. But I wasn't really sure. And it was always one of those things where I hope it comes out. I believe that you know what you're doing, but I wasn't necessarily involved with the production process. So, you know, I did my interview. I hope that, like, it was so long ago that I was like, oh crap, it's coming out. Like, I hope past me did a good job and said good things. I don't quite remember exactly what I said, but you know, just kind of like, I hope I did a good job back then and trust that maybe it will. So there was a kind of a silent period for a while. And then one day they just jumped in my DMs like, hey, it's coming out. Here's the trailer. Get ready. It's just like, whoa. That was actually right around Christmas, actually. So that was kind of a cool little, like, Christmas. It's not a gift, but you know what I mean? Kind of a cool little holiday thing.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things that I almost couldn't believe that they got into this documentary, and two of the interviews, one with Narcissa and then one with Hoda Ruby, or Hoda. I'm sure I'm destroying the name, but the fact that they were able to track down two people who, well, first of all, I don't believe I've ever seen an interview or anything like that with Hoda Ruby in anything. I mean, that's amazing. Did you know that was happening, or did they tell you?
No.
Okay.
No,
what did you think about
I
that
actually
part?
had no idea. I saw when the trailer came out, that's the first time I saw that. And that was actually the moment too where I'm like, oh, they got Summoning Salt and Hoda Ruby. This is going to be a big deal now.
This is for real. If you're not familiar, folks, I think, and you might not be, I think if you speedrun or if you watch speedruns, you probably know who this person is, but kind of a legend for just putting up some of the most amazing, ridiculous times in Super Metroid. And just the fact that they were actually able to get in touch with this person, it's one of the things I'm actually the most I wish there's a language barrier in my podcast. I can't speak to anybody. I don't speak Japanese. And so the fact that there is this amazing world over in Japan of speedrunners, and we rarely get a chance to see it. Some of them do come out for GDQs from time to time, but this is not a part of the scene that we get a chance to experience too often. And that's absolutely worth the price of admission just for that, just to see him in the flesh.
I would love another documentary even just to learn about the history of Japanese speedrunning. To flip that on its head and completely be centric on that. There's a lot of interesting stuff in that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought that part was so cool. And I hope that that's the beginning of something, or that we get to see more content like that, or maybe people might be able to translate some things for us. I noticed that a lot of YouTube channels now are translating a lot of Japanese magazines and things from the past, it's a huge effort, and I know it's not easy, and it has to be resource intensive, taking all this time, but it's really awesome getting to learn, like, so much of video game history is from that country. You know, it's like, this is where a lot of what we do is from there, and to learn more, oh man, it would be really awesome.
Yeah, there was a talking about there's so much that we don't know. There was an article I wrote about the history of Kaizo and Mario ROM hacking, and in the process of that, I realized that Japanese players already knew all this stuff. This is not new to them. I'm just bringing it to the West for the first time, so it makes me think, what other stories are in there? What other players are out there that we just haven't heard of yet? Absolutely,
and we are fortunate. I do know that there are a fair amount of Japanese streamers out there who speedrun as well, and so you can watch these things live, thankfully. However, if you're like myself and the language barrier is tough, you're not getting all the information, you're not hearing, you know, the content that the streamer is putting out there and all that stuff, and it makes me want to learn Japanese just for that reason.
So, have you seen the RTA in Japan marathon?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Even though sometimes I can't understand what they're saying, I still watch it just for the skill.
It's totally worth it. Yeah, and I didn't actually watch it until, was this year where they were back? Was it last year? When most recently somebody had recommended it to me because like, oh, you got to watch it. This is like the best gameplay you'll ever see, and it's absolutely amazing. It's mind-boggling. So the other part that I really found was incredibly interesting was the part with Narcissa. And if you've been around speedrunning for any period of time, I guess you'd have to be around now for a while because she stopped streaming a while ago. You're familiar with this individual, and it's kind of it's a dramatic story, and it's tough. It's kind of the other side of things for folks who, you know, were thrown into a spotlight and then had very little, you know, it's amazing. I don't think anybody ever thought streaming was going to get big, or at least the people who started with it, because there's a lot of things that happen when you get well known about something. And the fact that she was open and honest about these things, I found my heart broke a bit. Yeah. And it was also fascinating at the same time. I can't believe I wonder if you reacted at all or had any thoughts about that section of the documentary.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff from her. And yeah, like you said, it's a brave thing and a difficult thing to talk about that. I mean, streaming itself is very strange. It can be really strange. And I've talked about this, you know, many have talked about it. You know, just the idea that, oh, I don't know, even an entertainer, if you're a musician, if you're a band or whatever, you get on stage, you play your 2-hour set, and then you're going on to the next town. Streamers are always plugged in to what's going on, and there's anonymous individuals who are just going to come by and say literally anything that pops into their mind. You know, and you're plugged into that. So yeah, having someone address that in a real way as part of the whole ball of wax that is speedrunning and streaming, I think that's important. And I think it's brave of her to be, you know, talking about that, and it's brave of them to put it in the film, because it shows the whole thing, and it doesn't just mean that the film is a hype machine. Look at these awesome gamers. They're always having fun, and it's always great, and they're always doing this. They're just having so much fun. Right. You know, it really can be. My reaction to that part was kind of, you know, I mean, I'm familiar with their work, you know, in the speedrunning, you know, in Ocarina of Time and such, so it was cool to just hear that perspective, but it was kind of just like sort of nodding my head and being like, yep. Yep, I can totally see that. Yep, I definitely get that. I've always tried for longevity in what I'm doing, and I've made certain decisions and taken certain paths in my career that I feel like I try to prevent burnout in a certain area. And even with all of that said, you know, personally, to be real about it, I've ran up against plenty of moments where I'm just like, this is kind of sucking my soul out my nose here. I have got to figure out a way to, you know, have a little bit of personal space between me and everything else that I'm doing.
She said something in her interview that I really feel articulates a thought I've had, and I have to imagine that everyone else who's ever put anything out in public might have at some point. You can read 100 positive things about whatever you're doing or whatever art you're putting out into the world. And then there's that one person who maybe just didn't have the same experience that you were hoping they would have. And that's the one that sticks with you. And for better or for worse, I don't know why the human brain works that way, but to hear it articulated that way, I'm like, man, that is so right on the money. Anybody who puts anything out there like that, I feel like that was just nailed it. And it's a real thing. I mean, even no matter what level of audience you have to stream to, or that you perform to, or that you create for, that seems like a thing that really resonates. And it's a tough thing to deal with.
And, you know, and the way they're addressing it in relation to speedrunning too, is when you put something out there, you know, you could be an artist or a musician or whatever, and speedrunning even is, it doesn't have to be, not to sell up this is the inherent good, but it is inherently competitive. Right. And so you've got people watching you who are not only like judging you and what you're doing, but comparing you against other people. Oh, so-and-so got the time. Oh, so blah, blah, blah. Are you going to do the big time save that so-and-so found? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're losing. You know, are you going to keep the world record or defend it? To be honest, that's kind of something that's kind of made me kind of want to, like, I'm still doing speedrunning, but it's kind of made me sit down on that for a little while, because I just I don't need to take something kind of like Narcissa talked about. Like, I don't need to take something I love and then turn it into something that's just going to stress me out all the time. and where people, oh, it's a bad run because I didn't get the 2-second time save or whatever, and people are being like, so and so is getting the world record, are you going to beat them back? It does, it gets that pressure, and it's like, once you get to the top of a mountain, what, then what? People are just like, what next? What next? Are you going to get the new world? Are you going to get the any percent and the 100% world record or whatever? So, you start to see it as this never ending treadmill, and, you're only as good as the next accomplishment that you've done. And for me, I think that's good enough reason to focus more on creative endeavors and stop trying to climb somebody else's mountain all the time. I don't know, that's just me.
No, I'm glad you said it, GlitchCat. And to be honest with you, one of the things that I love the most is when I see people I really like watching their stuff take a break, because I know they're taking a break for a reason, and it can't be easy, especially when you're doing it like yourself full time and things like that. I'm sure there's some apprehension doing that, but the fact that you do it, I know the people who are the most passionate have to appreciate that, because the only way this thing works, we want to still love it. We want to still love it 20 years from now, 10 years from now, tomorrow, and at some point you got to take a break. Some people need breaks,
Yeah. I want to set myself up to continually enjoy this for a long period of time, and it's just not worth it to me. Tunic, for example, great example. I don't know if you've played Tunic. No spoilers.
Love Tunic. Yeah.
But I loved it. I played it. It was like the best game of my adult life, period. Yeah. And that's exactly why I don't want to speedrun it, because I'm just going to reduce it to a series of things that I'm just failing at. You know what I mean? And like, you'll get them too. You get the tricks too. But like you said, you always notice the one you fail at more. Like I got a PB, I got 2 PBs today, but then I failed. And so I'm like, I'm noticing that failure.
I'm going to do a quick shameless self-promotion. Did an episode with Sonny Muffin all about Tunic. So it was my favorite game that year. I think it was the last year that it came out. And I just adore that game. And I agree with you. It's one of those games, I don't want to ruin that experience. It was just too good. Yeah.
Yeah, let Sonny Muffin run it. They can do it. I'll just watch. That's fine.
He's doing the work for all of us. We appreciate it. One of the things that I also appreciated that the documentary spent a lot of time with was on GDQ and the whole charitable aspect to our communities. One of the things that I when people ask me about speedrunning or what am I doing over the summer, and I tell them I'm going to GDQ to raise money for charity, as soon as you start telling people how much money you've raised for like Prevent Cancer and Doctors Without Borders, people's eyes get really large and they're like, you can do that with gaming? And I think the documentary did a really good job of capturing like this spirit that we all come together. Yes, we want to hang out with our friends. Yes, we want to speedrun and show off our games to the whole world. But at the same time, we're there to for really good causes. And I think the documentary did a really good job of capturing that.
Yeah, for sure. And they showed it too as like a like how it was a grassroots thing, which I really appreciate. The footage of Mike Yama's basement, Mom's basement, where they started out. You know what I mean? Andrew G sitting on like the proto couch back in the day, where the couch came from.
Where the couch came from.
That whole thing. I like that too. It's like, it didn't just, they showed that it arose organically, that people like actually decided to do this. It wasn't just kind of a corporate ploy to get something to happen,
Totally agree. And it's, it's kind of interesting because a charity marathon for all intents and purposes has become our Super Bowl, or has been our Super Bowl now for years. But it's kind of interesting that that's the hook. It's not, it's not the most competitive day of the year. It's not the, it's just, it happens to be where we all get together and we do this kind of cool thing, thing, which is pretty great.
It's interesting because it's an interesting thing in like, I mean, I know this is silly to say, but like, obviously, like the Super Bowl is just for football. The World Series or whatever is just for baseball. The Stanley Cup is just for hockey. And like most of it, and then you have like what, tournaments for different fighting games, for Street Fighter or for Counter-Strike or whatever. You have like these game specific tournaments. And GDQ, everybody gets to come together. It's not a specific game. You get your retro, you get your new school, your old school. That's unique in the world of like, I don't know, what am I trying to say? Like Super Bowl-esque events, you know what I mean? Where everybody, all the sports, it's an Olympics almost, you know what I mean? Because there's so many different games and events, and the hurdles aren't necessarily competing against the shot put, but they're all world class, and you're going to see world class stuff all around.
Absolutely. And I really do think they capture that well. The fact that it's this thing that is just kind of different and kind of wild and in and of itself. I was wondering if you, I felt like I did, but I'm curious about from your perspective, watching the film, did you learn anything new or find out something that maybe you weren't quite aware of after, before watching the film and then came away with something different?
I mean, most of the stuff regarding speedrunning and GDQ was fairly new for me. I think honestly the thing I learned and what I liked the most to learn was, like you were talking about before, is just kind of getting to see some of my friends' lives. In particular, Andrew. I really liked Andrew's part. I thought that was really neat, and it wasn't a story I had gotten to hear, and just really I like that, and I thought it was cool that Andrew got that time in the sunshine in particular. I think he really deserves it for all the work he's put in over the years.
I got to agree with you. It's definitely probably one of the parts that might have hit me in the heart the most, as much as all of them did. But seeing that Andrew's a real, for those of us who, like yourself, who have been around and been watching speedrunning for a while, I know I do. Andrew G is, for me, was like this. I mean, he's one of the biggest reasons that I watch speedrunning today and still into it. Like, he was setting these records when, you know, basically nobody else was doing it. Our very few people were doing it, right?
I always joke that Andrew G invented any percent by just kind of like disregarding the rules. I mean, there's more of a story in that.
Totally.
But, you know, Twin Galaxies or other sites at the time were saying, like, these are the rules to speedrun. You can't use a glitch and all this. Like, Twin Galaxies banned glitches, and they have a weird kind of history with speedrunning meta, but they kind of failed to adapt with the times, I feel. And yeah, Andrew just kind of was like, what if we just ignored all this? What if I just run and do whatever I want? And then that's the record. And like, in so doing, kind of opened the door, I think, for like any percent in these really absurd glitched runs by just asking, like, what if there weren't any rules?
Real. I mean, that's real talk. I mean, it's kind of wild to think how simple that is, but that seems, I mean, that he was doing it and he was recording it. That's the other part. Like, so many of us, I'm sure there were some people who were trying some of these things and just never bothered or even thought of recording and maybe being competitive with a time or anything like that, right?
Yeah. I wish, you know, there's like no photos of me playing games as a kid. When they were filming, they were asking like, oh, hey, if you have any old photos of you as a kid playing Nintendo or whatever, you know, give them to us. We'll put them in the thing or whatever. And I asked them, there's none. My parents don't have one or two. I got one photo. My dad finally managed to find, but yeah, there's nothing, because no one thought to record that, you know.
Right.
No one thought, oh, this might be interesting or significant someday. Maybe this gameplay would be interesting to check out. You know, nothing like that. It just didn't exist. No one cared.
I like what Zopdash said in the chat. What if I break this game at a fundamental level, right? I mean, that's, it was kind of a novel thought, a concept. You know, if somebody experienced, okay, I shouldn't say if somebody, I know in my own experience in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was playing NES, if something glitched or broke, something's wrong with the game, I got to reset, you know? It's like,
yeah, I would have felt that way too as a kid. I didn't want to break it.
Right.
I didn't want to break it. I remember, you know, even a couple of times, like, you'd put a cartridge in and you turn it on and it wouldn't boot up and it would like, it would make that freeze noise. That was like scary. I was like, oh, I broke my Nintendo. Oh no. Like, I need that thing. It's important. But yeah, you know, the whole idea of just like exploring the laws of physics within the game. Just what can you do at all?
Bringing it back to the film, I think that's one of the things the film does good, because I think there are so many different approaches and folks speedrun things for different things. Some people like breaking the game. Some people like finding all that little stuff. Some people like getting the, you know, being the best at, like, having the most skill you could possibly have at the game. And I think that's such an interesting thing, that all these different types of approaches can work and are competitive and are fulfilling and satisfying and all that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that the documentary kind of talked about some of that, because like even just the speedrunners who are in the film, many of you have all of you have different approaches, and I think that's kind of an interesting aspect to it. It's what I feel like is like the art side of the speedrunning thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some that, you know, you want to, just like you said, you know, like, I mean, look at Mitch. He is the Mario 3, the best Mario 3 player you could find. Yep. He has put more time into that game than just about anybody. Me, on the other hand, I like to make things. I like to do, you know, just something different. I like to have new things kind of in my face all the time while it's in the same kind of physics engine. Yeah, I like that diversity very much.
Totally agree. One of the things, because they spent so long making this film, it's kind of an interesting time that I think, by the way, it was great to see it released and for them to do a thing with the charity at GDQ and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, I'm just observing here. There are some things that are changing at GDQ. One, well, Mike did step down, is back in just for some health reasons, but like Mike stepping down from GDQ is pretty huge deal. I know he's going back now. He's really working on it, but at some point he's going to retire from it. And then also, you know, the games that we're seeing at GDQ, especially the last one and the next one that's going to be coming up, we're starting to see a lot of more. There is a new crop of speedrunners showing up and who are doing the thing nowadays. Retro's still around. People are still, Mario 64, Ocarina of Time are still huge as they've ever been, but we're starting to see a whole new generation of speedrunners, and it's interesting to observe. I'm wondering if you've noticed it at all yourself and have observed any of this stuff.
Yeah, I noticed even the last GDQ in particular had a lot of games that I'm looking down the list and I'm just like, I don't know this one. I don't know this one. I don't know this one. What's that one? There's like you said, a new crop of speedrunners. I think, you know, on the one hand, there's this tendency, I've been around forever, you know, oh, where's all my favorites? I want to see all my favorites. There's this tendency to want all my favorites. But on the other hand, the fact that there is a new crop of speedrunners and there are these new games being submitted and things, that proves that whatever we were doing was working. It has now inspired new people. There are new ones coming up who want that. I've always said that I want to try to age gracefully in what I'm doing in kind of the way like Tony Hawk. I look up to him as an I know it's a really weird one to pull here.
No, it's a great one though.
You know, I hope to be never recognized at airport security ever. But you know, Tony Hawk was on top of his game, and then he paved the way for the next people. Yes. Once he was, you know, he got older, you can't play as much. I like to think I can still play. You know, I'm on peak performance, but at a certain point, I won't be able to play as well, and I hope to lay the groundwork down so that other people can follow after. I'd like to gracefully transition at some point into being a helper and not necessarily being on the front stage anymore. Another thing too, I think with the new games coming out is, and this isn't a bad thing, but so many of those old games have just been absolutely dominated. We've had 10 to 15 years of hardcore attempts at things like Mario 64 and Super Metroid, Castlevania, all the Mario games, you know, you name it, big series, people have put the time in. And even the obscure ones, Chip and Dale on NES or something, like less known, but there's people that play them and they play them really well. There's a lot of world records that are just kind of like discouragement squad, I think it's a phrase that Mitch had. And it's like, you know, and it's not all about world records or anything, like, of course, but I think that's why people are maybe seeing newer games and other indie stuff as more of an option now. Because like, okay, yeah, maybe I want to speed run. I want to run at GDQ. I think that'd be cool. What's my path for that going to be? Well, Mario 64, you know, I mean, really, like, is it going to be Mario 64 when it's kind of dominated by gods and there's a lot of other good players? I understand why indie games and newer games are a nice side option. And I like to see it personally. Even this past GDQ, I always get a couple of games that I want to buy or I want to check out after the fact, just because I saw them on GDQ. I always think you should, if you're watching GDQ, you should always watch a run of a game you don't know what it is, because it's the best time that you're going to get the best explanation and you get to see all of the game.
Totally agree with that. And in addition to that, I think we're also seeing, you're hinting at this, and I think you're totally right, that we're seeing the influence of speedrunning on a lot of indie and modern games, where there are modes that allow you to speedrun things. There are in-game timers now more than we've ever seen. I mean, all these different things that these are being influenced by our community. You know, it's pretty awesome.
It's merging. It's merging. And that's been cool. You're hit the nail on the head with that. It's been merging, and game devs, you see more game devs on the couch at GDQ. I've seen, you know, oh, we got the dev of this indie game on commentary. Yes. And you see, I think, more indie devs kind of building their games toward that, where maybe in the past there was more of like, it's speedrunners versus the devs. The devs try to prevent the cheese and the speedrunners go through the walls. And I think, like, you know, more speedrun, like people that play games are making games, people that make games are like playing them more, and it's merging. Absolutely.
It's pretty cool. I think some of my favorite runs at Games Done Quick have been the ones where the developers have been, you know, it's one of the reasons I thought the Tunic GDQ run was really awesome. They had the developer, they had 2 or 3 developers on, you know, on the virtual couch as they go, as Sunny Muffin was playing it. It's really cool to see that stuff. And you know that they appreciate what speedrunners do and all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool. And I don't think that's going to change. One of the things I was actually, because a couple of the, you know, students are mouthing off in the chat right now, when they've created their own games, some of them actually start speedrunning right away. And I'm guessing half the students don't even know I'm a speedrunner. And so it's this influence that like speedrun, I don't want to say it's ubiquitous yet, but it's definitely more commonly aware than I've ever seen before in the, I don't know, 10, 15 years I've been watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think there's something to that point though. You're so right. It's not as much. It felt more adversarial back in the day. It was devs versus the speedrunners. You know, the devs don't want you to go through the wall. And even like the GDQ commentary kind of reflects that a little bit. And then not to throw shade on it. No one was doing it wrong.
Totally.
But even like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was more like, okay, now they tried to stop me from doing this wall clip, but I go over here and do it. And now it's more like, oh yeah, and the devs put in this really cool thing over here that lets you do that. You know, I've seen that kind of shift in the zeitgeist.
Totally agree. And I got to shout out Rainbow Yamas's comment here, plus the number of games that include in-game timers, Celeste being a great example of that. I totally agree. This is the fact that exists. It just tells you right there that, okay, hey, maybe I don't need to run a live split for this one because the devs have helped me out. They've taken care of it. Yeah. So.
And aside, the extremely okay games and the Celeste devs have been like, paving the way for how indie devs and speedrunning communities could coexist side by side. I sometimes feel like devs in the past thought that speedrunning would be a bad thing for their game because the people see it getting broken and you don't get to see the content and whatever. But like the Celeste devs just absolutely embrace like the speedrunning community, the modding community. Has that hurt the Celeste game? No, not at all. It's made it better. And I think like a lot of other indie devs are looking at what Celeste is doing with their community and being like, huh, I see. So maybe in 5 more years, we'll get, you know, 100 more things like that, which I think would be awesome.
Totally agree. And I got to agree with the chat here. Maddie is the GOAT. The fact that one of her levels was like on the stage, you know, a ROM hack level. I mean, how freaking cool. I just thought, I didn't know that was happening, but I thought I was just like, like, this is so cool. Celeste, you know,
I got to test that too.
Did you really?
We were hanging out in the back for months. Yeah, I was part of the testing for the most recent one.
Yeah.
The one that Maddie's level was in, I was part of the testing team for that. So
allegedly,
we were hanging out, testing things,
you were
playing it beforehand. Yeah. I've played that level like so many times already.
It was way cool. I guess that I think this is a really good kind of like it's really great to hear kind of your experience, and then hopefully we get a chance to. I think as you can tell, folks, both GlitchCat and I were fans of the film, regardless if I mean I know you were in it, but it still seems like you were a fan. Any takeaways or anything from the whole process of going through it and seeing it release? Any final thoughts or how to sum up the whole experience of it all?
Let me, you know, there's something, maybe another weird reference to pull in, but there's an interview from a while back with the comedian George Carlin, of all people. And George Carlin gave in that interview a really succinct definition of success that always stuck with me and comes to mind now. Figure out what you like to do, get good at what you like to do, and get recognized for being good at what you like to do. Now, granted, the third one is kind of optional. Some people don't want that recognition. That's valid. But for me, I don't know. It mattered. And maybe I don't mean to sound selfish, or it's the film is not all about me. I'm grateful to be, you know, one part of this enormous whole. But it's personally satisfying. And for me, it fulfills something. I don't know. It always mattered to me to be recognized for being good at what I love to do. And this is like set in stone now, like it's in the movie, you know, got it. Apart from that, apart from my own personal feelings about it, I really just hope that maybe this can be the moment that going forward, we can always say, hey, check out, have you seen Running with Speed? Check out Running with Speed. And I'm anxious and excited for the next 5 to 10 years when someone would show up and say, I saw Running with Speed, and that was the moment that I wanted to get in. Because like the younger players, the newer speedrunners, people that are picking it up, they're just getting better, you know, and it's been a great ride this whole, you know, 10-ish years, you know, being involved with games on this kind of level and playing it. And I'm so excited to see. And if me or running with speed or that whole thing could help someone get along, then like job well done. That's it. You know what I mean? To turn the wheel again, to lift up the next generation, like that's the work to do. So I'm proud that it can do that.
You just articulated something that I wasn't able to say myself because I hadn't formulated the thought, and you just did. It is really nice to be seen, and it feels like this documentary did that. Like our community, don't get me wrong, I know we've grown. You can't say you haven't been seen when 100,000 people are watching Games Done Quick, but the fact that there's this thing there that it's like we've been seen, that's pretty awesome. That's a really good point.
Yeah. I thought, you know, there's something I said to Sky even like right when we watched it the first time. I was like, they really got everybody's good side.
Yes,
they really got everybody's good side. The individuals, the community itself, the crowd. You know, they picked, even just in the editing where they picked. There's one shot in the trailer. It was cool to go through like the crowd and see. Oh, I know them. Oh, I know them. Oh, hey, yeah, I remember that. You know, even just the moments of the crowd that they picked with someone. There's one shot where my buddy Super Mike is like jumping up like out of his seat and like throwing his hands up. Just in the editing and the way they picked, they got everybody's good side, and that's. It's special. It's special. It's like, it's there forever. You know what I mean? It'll still be there next year. It'll still be there. It'll still be there. It'll still be there. And I feel like that's world records maybe come and go, you know, but like something like that stays. And that's, I don't know, it's very special to me.
I totally agree. And what a great closing thought to close this out with. That absolutely, it feels special. And I totally agree with that. And for those of you who haven't seen it, go watch it. Do yourself a favor. Yes, you do have to pay for it. It's on basically every streaming service at this point, wherever you can buy stuff. I bought mine on YouTube, and it was $10. I think that in the US it might have raised it a little bit. I can't quite remember, but it's absolutely worth the watch. And as we mentioned, it is about 2.5 hours, so it's okay. It's in 3 chunks. You can break it up. You don't have to watch it all at once. I thought I was just going to watch the first chunk, and I nonstop. I walked right through. I couldn't put it down, to be honest. So it was great. GlitchCat, thank you so much for taking some time and sharing your experience and sharing your thoughts on the film. I'm really glad that I got to hear it from your perspective, because it got to be honest, it was so awesome seeing you, first of all, first frame of the trailer, but then also in the actual film. It was cool getting to know you in a little different way than just watching your stream. And I shouldn't say just something outside of the stream. It's pretty awesome, man.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be a part of it with names that are like honestly arguably kind of like way bigger than me. That's just true, you know what I mean? Like I don't mean to downplay. I'm not trying to be self-depreciating, but it's nice, like it's nice to stand at the table at the Hall of Justice with the big heroes and be like, well, I guess I'm also here too. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's nice. It's just really nice, and I hope that it can just be something that can inspire other people. One thing I wanted to mention.
Please.
Oh, I was trying to think of something I want to say. This is just a kind of a GC7 request for everybody. If you do watch it, leave a review.
Yes.
Leave a review on your platform of choice, because that helps the algorithm out.
Oh my gosh.
And the powers that be, they might be trying to get an international release, or the distributor or whatever. You know, the people that are putting this out are looking at this and seeing how speedrunning based video game documentary content is going to do with an audience. And the more people respond to it, you know, you don't have to play that little corporate numbers game, but it shows the mechanized bobs that run the show up there that people care about this. So if people are purchasing it, giving it a review, talking about it, maybe we'll get to see more in the future. You know, tell them that you like it so that we get more. Maybe a Kaizo documentary someday.
I almost forgot about that, and I should have written it down. I wanted to comment on that. So when you search, at least in my Google search results, IMDb comes up, and there's one review, and the person who watched it didn't find it the most interesting. Okay, that's fine. But the only way to counter, I rarely write reviews ever. So I'm going to hit up IMDb. I'm going to hit up Voodoo. I'm going to hit up YouTube, because you're totally right. This is, if you want to see more content like this, and I know I do, you have to support it. And this is the way you do it. Great point. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yep, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, though. I really, really appreciate it. I'm flattered to be here, and I'm flattered to be representing the game that I love.
Super appreciate it, folks. If you don't know, I mean, many of you came in, you're watching the live stream, coming in from the raid, twitch.tv/GlitchCat7. Go there, watch it, do all the things. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go over to Twitch right now. Follow his channel. You're not going to be disappointed. All the time, there's always something interesting going on. A lot of Super Mario World, ROM hack. I mean, what are you actually playing recently right now?
We are recently, we're doing moderation.
Oh, cool.
I'm a moderator for SMW Central. So for those that don't know, that's like the internet's biggest database of Mario World hacks, patches, and things. They're just patches. You can't download hacks, no hacks, just patches. But I moderate hacks. So basically, if it can be beaten by a human, that's my job, to show that it can be and to demonstrate. So we've been playing some stuff, and we're playing a new hack from Wyatt right now. You might know Wyatt from Casio Mario World. Big super one is called Tired Mario World, and you can't run, so you're just very tired. It's awesome.
That's a cool little hook to get it in there. That's interesting. Very cool.
Fun. It's a tough one though.
It sounds like fun. So if you're interested in the Mario stuff, please go. And just in general, I got to tell you, GlitchCat's stream is one of my favorite to hang out with. Always chill, always good conversation, and always just a really kind and pleasant place to hang out. So please.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the game. I love speedrunning. I love Kaizo. I love this. I just really hope I could be a good ambassador for it, and maybe get someone else involved so you'll be even better than us someday.
Another chat, literally one of the nicest people you'll ever watch. Totally agree. And he's that way in person, by the way. I've only had a chance to speak with GlitchCats once or twice in person, and he's just like that in person too. So
thanks. That's really kind. You're really nice.
Let's make him blush, folks. Let's make him blush. Okay.
Watch for Subcon 2 maybe this year.
Thanks everyone for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, please feel free, subscribe, like, leave a comment, all that stuff people say at the end of a video. It honestly all goes a long way to help the podcast. Thank you so much. If you want to join us on Discord, we chat mostly about food, but occasionally we do talk about the stuff that's in the podcast. The link is in the show notes or in the description. Feel free. Come on by. Join us. If you want to follow on Twitter, Sequence Break PC. Sequence Break PC. I post when I go live. It's kind of not at a set time, so if you want to see the live feed of the podcast, feel free, follow there. And finally, if you want to email, podcast@sequencebreakpodcast.com. Sequencebreakpodcast.com is also where you can find the backlog of all of the episodes. It's also on YouTube as well, so feel free, join in, have some fun. Thank you so much. I will see ya in the next one.